Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It is Thursday, August 29th of 2024. I can't believe 2024 is almost over. This is SIG Network, regular meeting, and we are governed by the code of conduct as usual. Please be nice to each other. We'll get started. We have a pretty light agenda today, so if anybody wants to put anything on, the doc is open. We'll get started with a little... Sorry?
I'm planning on taking a huge chunk of time.
Oh, okay then. Well then.
But I mean, still throw stuff on, but it's not as empty as it looks. Our agenda is
packed, and if you all have something to talk about, you'll have to push it to next week. We'll get started with a little bit of triage. Let me share. The good news is there's not that many new issues since last time. How's that? Everybody can see it? Yes? I can't see you all. Somebody say yes. Good. All right.
Yes.
Cool. Going from newest to older. 2 days ago, kube proxy hope listen all zero address dual stack.
This is a duplicate. You can assign it to me and I'll find the original.
Is it related to the multi-listener?
Yes.
Rock and roll. Public image Jesse DNS utils have no update for years. I'll respond to this one. Unless somebody argues with me, I don't think this is an image that we're planning to keep up to date. It was more of a test tool that maybe we shared, but we don't have it as any of the build pipelines in Kubernetes, and I don't think we intended to keep it up to date that way. Anybody disagree with that?
Where is used?
I don't think we...
For the E2E test, I think.
Do we use it in our own ETE tests?
Some time ago we did, but I can check.
All right, I can look into that. If we want to keep it up to date, we'll have to make an image for it and set up the build pipeline so that it happens. I just don't know if we want to keep doing that. Conformance test, those are no.
So what's the contract we have for those images? I think we never said anything about maintaining the E2E test images.
I mean, if it works for EDE tests, cool. It's not like we care about security for running EDE tests, but user is citing here that it's got some really old stuff in it. I mean, obviously, Jesse is really old, so.
Who is this person? It's in the test. I mean, definitely, this is for test only.
Maybe we should.
I can follow up if you want. The question is why is to understand, because sometimes there is random people that say, "Oh, this is outdated, less outdated," and other times is people that have some security thing that they run some security product. So
yeah.
Let me ask if it's just updating because they saw the opportunity and they want to do it.
So I just look using git grep. We do like explicitly reference this in the DNS E2E test. There's like a Wheezy and a Jesse.
The test, in the test, I'm almost sure, but the question is why this person is reporting it? If it's just because he saw the opportunity or because it's a real issue?
I mean, probably they saw it and went, Jesse, oh my gosh. But the reality is, like, I'm not sure it matters. I don't think we want to set up a build pipeline to keep this thing up to date every couple of weeks with Dependabot or something. So, okay.
One question is like, should we delete the Jesse thing in the test?
No. The test cannot be deleted. That's the only test. Yeah, no.
Yeah, it was there for I forget the exact reason, but it was something was different in Jesse, which is why we had a separate version. Something about DNS resolution. Sorry, Adrian, did you have something you want to say?
They say that there's common use for DNS troubleshooting, and there's references to documentation. I wonder if we still reference it. Like, are we telling them? So the just above the why is it needed? There's those links. Oh yeah, it is. It's there. It's on the Kubernetes document. Yeah, the first link.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're telling people to use it.
All right.
So it probably needs to be replaced or something.
All right, Antonio and I will look at this afterwards. Moving on for triage. Remember, folks, triage is figuring out if something's real, not signing up to fix it. Kube proxy contract logic does not consider service. Antonio, do you want to talk about this one?
Oh, this was a really nice bug that I don't forget the name. What's
Me, Adrian.
yeah, Adrian, Adrian reproduced it, and we were we were investigating for a while, and then Winship kindly accepted the challenge to fix it. So basically, is that when we do the contract logic, we do something as, oh, if there are no endpoints and now endpoints, this may have something stale, we clean. But when we implement the traffic topology, we need to make this logic based on what the kube proxy see, not in what exists in the cluster. So when you have internal traffic policy local, maybe you have thousands of endpoints, but for kube proxy, only one of them matters, the one that runs in the node. So when these endpoints switches flips, they need to delete the entries, but because they see another endpoints, they don't consider the entry stale and they don't delete it.
Okay. All right.
It was a tough one.
So
So this is assigned to me in the sense of actually working on, so you can triage accept it.
You got it. All right. Describe service endpoints shows endpoints that are not ready.
This is a good first issue. Somebody, I think that there is already a PR for that. When we 1 or 2 releases ago, the describe was using the endpoint. Somebody say, "Oh, we should use slices." And the most common problem is that when you do endpoints, everything is you get the list of ready endpoints. When you move to endpoint slices, we all are doing, okay, I'm going to get all the endpoints, but we never realize that there are conditions associated. So you need to filter by the ones that are ready to have the same output. There is a PR there. If somebody can review, I don't remember.
This one? No, that's old.
There is one at the end, at the bottom, and it's ready to merge.
Okay. I'll queue that up.
It has I did some review, but it has some weird logic on the counting on the points, and I didn't have time to follow up. But it should be almost ready to merge.
Okay. I'll throw it in my queue. Actually, let me do it this way. Come on. That way I don't lose it. Cool. So we can. Failure testing services should function for service endpoints using host network.
Is this new? Well, there is something. CC, me, and Justin Santa Barbara, we were discussing this today. We have this problem with the
Oh yeah.
Right now, after the cloud provider external, the node name can only be hostname or hostname override. Before, it could be hostname override, or the entry cloud provider. And the tests assume that node is equal to hostname when they are using host network. So we have maybe the cops jobs are failing, but we need to figure out how to.
Okay. Excellent. Still seeing the issue for endpoints staying out of sync. So,
this was fixed but the problem is that there was a follow-up question because we don't know if the person reporting is seeing the symptom, the message, or is really having the problem.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm not going to read that right now. Okay, there's a lot of state here. Anybody wants to try to, oh, it looks like they've got a repro. Who is
TNQN is used to be.
Yeah,
I think
I know.
we can assign it to him. I mean, he always used to be super accountable and responsible, and he fixed this.
Okay. That was the other one. Another test should preserve source pod IP.
I thought this was already.
This one we decided the test case was wrong. Scroll down, or well, we decided that the test case should be kube proxy only, and then I think we didn't really decide what that meant.
I'm not agreeing with that, but because the thing is, you can have services that masquerade the source IP, right? But this was this way like since forever, and having a service that masquerades the source IP is a big problem from practically a lot of customers and users.
Kube proxy explicitly supports this behavior. It has a command line.
Yeah, I know.
But it's not the default.
Right. So, but the issue is that the test is mistakenly asserting that Kubernetes requires services to not masquerade here, and it does not require that. It's just that
Okay,
kube proxy
you always win on the semantic thing. Yeah, you are right. So, but then the people that doesn't can skip it. I mean, this is the default behavior, and this catches a lot of things, and most of the people that implement services implement this behavior.
Is this conformance, or is this just
No? It cannot be conformant for what Dan say. It's impossible. We can try to enforce this behavior, but I don't know if we want to go down that path.
I mean,
so Antonio and I keep having this argument about should tests that assume a particular proxy implementation have some feature tag on them, or do we just require people using other proxies to manually skip them?
But that's okay. There is a big debate on how to organize that. There are kube proxy only tests. There are networking default behavior tests, and there are the networking conformance tests. This is testing a default. So my point is, people that implement something, what I really think we should do is on the testing, we should test the default, right? The default behavior. And people that implement something that is not default should skip the test. Now the question is, how do we expose this to users? And that's the big debate. And we are preparing some discussion for contributors. I mean, if Patrick can go or go to start discussing this, is how do we tell people, oh, you can enable this or you can disable this, because right now it's very clunky.
Right. If we mark these as kube proxy tests, then people assume that they don't really matter if they're not running kube proxy. But really, these are strongly recommended semantic tests, but not conformance, right? If you're writing a new proxy, we strongly recommend that you try to achieve this semantic, but if you don't, it's not going to invalidate you, right?
To summarize it, we need to
maybe-
do what that's saying. We don't
Maybe
have
we
what
need
that's saying.
a separate tag that isn't kube proxy, but sort of optional but recommended.
Node has node conformance, but I don't like the word conformance. I think that is more default behavior, recommended something. If we can have this word, now we have a mechanism in the E2E that allows to tag and use more simple
Right.
filtering. So if somebody have a suggestion for this subset that are not conformance but are recommended or something, we can do that and tell people, look, these are what SIG Network recommend as best practices for the implementations of.
Yeah, we just need a good way to describe it. These are the usual semantics or normal behavior, or something that makes it clear that it's more than just advisory. It's pretty strongly recommended that you conform, but not conform in the sense of we'll kick out your product. Okay, what do we do with this?
I don't know. Assign to me, and I will keep debating with Dan and try to come up with a tag or something.
Okay.
Well, and everybody in the room, if everybody has opinions on something, feel free to jump.
Yeah.
And suggest things.
Especially if you have built or would build or use an alternate kube proxy replacement, and you have a feeling about how to describe this. Okay, that's all the triage that is newer than like March. So cool, good for us. We have, I'll stop sharing. Well, actually, hold on. Agenda next is Rob. Rob, if you're going to use time, maybe I can jump the queue and just do a quick run through on 132 caps.
Sure.
Okay. I will be like just a couple minutes.
I'll time you.
Please do. I took the liberty of running through the cap table and marking a few things as ready to clean up in 32. A few things have already come in to start removing old feature gates and stuff. Our cap list is actually looking pretty thin at this point. So we should start opening the door to new ideas if we are ready for this. But running through, we have probes. Dan, is this shooting for 32? Or part of it?
Probably not at this point.
Okay. I had an interesting conversation where an old idea resurfaced around probes. I'll have to file an issue on it. So you're not shooting for 32, so I'll leave it as TBD. Load balancer service status improvements. I don't even remember what this one was. Do you, Dan? It's yours.
Yeah, this is me trying to fix the load balancer EDE tests after the removal of the provider code broke them all. And basically making it so the cloud provider indicates which load balancer features it supports.
That's right. Yes. So you were shooting for alpha in 31, but we didn't hit 31, right?
Yeah. So put it alpha for 32.
Okay. Kube proxy v2 v1 alpha 2 component config. Damon, are you here? Or Dan, do you know? Or just somebody know?
He's still working on that. So yeah, I guess probably alpha v132.
Okay. DNS search string validation. Adrian, you're taking this one over, right?
Yeah. What's the rough timeline for 132?
The goal is to cut a release in November, like just before KubeCon, I think.
When does code need to be like merged into master?
Yeah, I forget the exact date. It's like on the order of 6 weeks from now.
Okay, great. That's fine. Yeah, let's aim for 132. I still need to figure out ECE tests.
Okay.
But I think it's there.
Okay, great. Kube proxy aware of load balancer behavior. This is the VIP mode stuff. And Ricardo had asked that we push off from 31 to 32. So Ricardo or Ryan, are you here? No. Okay. Well, we'll leave it at 32, but I'll have to run through and ping that one just to be sure. Actually, let me run through all of these just to be sure. And I'll ping them all. Multi-service CIDRs. It was beta in 31. GA when, Antonio?
We need.
You're gonna do another beta,
feedback.
right?
We need. I was talking with Jordan and with David East. They are strong opposing to have a beta with alpha, with GA. So the only option that they give me is move the APIs to GA and leave the feature gate in beta. But that's something a weird state. So the other option is have feedback in beta and move to GA altogether.
So, but wasn't the original plan to have a second beta where you have everything on by
Yeah,
default?
but-
'Cause it's off by default, right?
But they don't allow me to have beta APIs on by default.
Ah, right. Because the APIs and gates are different. Ugh.
Yeah, that's the thing. So what I'm doing now is in GKE is going to have an option to enable in beta and see if there are another provider and get feedback from there, and use it for the GA criteria with the feedback.
Okay. So we staying in beta for 32?
It's the only option right now because
That's the
graduating the APIs to GA with the feature gate in beta.
That's weird.
The problem is weird, right? People are going to see the APIs, cannot use it. I don't like APIs that doesn't do anything.
Okay. I agree 1,000%. That is interesting. We have, since we've switched betas off by default, we need to really think about how we want to do this normally. Okay. All right. So we're staying beta for that one. NF tables, Kube proxy. Dan, what's your plan in 32? Anything?
Staying beta. Going to
Staying
GA
beta.
33.
All right. Actually, I'll just mark you as 33 if you have a target. Okay. Rob and or Gaurav.
Yeah, I need to remember how we said we were going to split these up. I think we said 2433 was going to become the cap that was just focused on the hints API, and that would go to GA at the same time as traffic distribution, which is the 4.4s, goes to GA, which hopefully would also be 132. Gaurav, feel free to correct me. I think you're on this call.
Yeah, so 132 is the next one, right?
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
thinking, I guess we can discuss this again, but I was thinking let's wait on beta for a while and see to get some feedback.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, usually we do wait a couple cycles in beta before it goes to GA. So
I'll tag these for 33 and then we can reevaluate for 33.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Whoops, that is not what I wanted to do.
So this actually got reverted from 1.31 because Jordan said that we had cheated on something having to do with deprecations. So
yep.
it's currently targeted for beta in 1.33.
So beta in 33. Yeah, that was my fault for not seeing that. I mean, it's a practically useless field, but the letter of the law needs to be followed. Okay, so it's, I don't know when it went alpha. Oh, whoops, resorted by that column, didn't it? Where did it go? Since, I don't know, prehistory. All right, where were we? Traffic distribution, host IPs added, just a cleanup for 32, cleanup for 32, cleanup in 33. That's it. That's the show. Anybody have KEPs that I'm missing here? I'll run through all the open issues again when I get a minute, but anybody know of any?
You're missing one, the Lionel one.
Which one?
Yes, I will send it in the chat.
Copy link. 4770. Okay. Endpoint slice controller flexibility. All right, what's the state of it?
I did a lot of comments and I'm really happy with the current state.
Yeah, I need to do another round of review. Thanks for a reminder. But I trust Antonio on this.
Okay, so status right now is pre-alpha, shooting for pre-alpha since whatever 131, shooting for alpha in 32. Is that right? I haven't read the KEP yet, so I don't really know the scope.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable.
Okay, I'll ping out all the ones that are shooting for changes in 32. I will run through and ping on the issues, just so the release team is aware that we're paying attention. All right, cool. I'll stop and I will hand the floor over to
Yeah,
Mr.
can
Rob.
I present?
You can give me a moment. Whoops, participants. Rob Moore. Co-host you are.
Sweet, thank you. Let's see. Did this work?
I see something.
All right. So for a little bit of context, for the past, I don't know, 5-6 releases of Gateway API, probably forever, we've been doing these kind of reviews with SIGNet leads, basically of, hey, here are the things we want to release in, Gateway API, and here's a high-level summary. And this is just a way to do a quick review and discussion over bigger topics that can be maybe a bit more efficient than a code review. And it can also be a signal of we should have more discussion or more thorough review of a certain area. And because it's very hard to find a time where all SIGNet leads happen to be present in the same place, and this agenda was pretty light, I figured, well, why not recycle this? So here we are. It is Gateway API 1.9. And yeah, let me just run through this. I think we should be able to get through everything, but anyone at all, don't hesitate to add questions throughout. This is meant to be an interactive process, and yeah, go from there. So a few things. This is 1.2, and we've reached the end of what we would call our API refinement process now, and we are ready for review. We are graduating to 4 GEPs to standard. That's timeouts, duration format, gateway infrastructure stuff, and backend protocol. And we're introducing 4 new experimental GEPs. That's not by accident. We've tried to rate limit the API by essentially saying that for everything that goes into experimental, something has to come out. So 4 in, 4 out. I'll cover that later, but this is our first release where we're doing testing out a new release cycle. This is really trying to get to a more predictable, faster release process. There's a whole bunch of documentation around it, but the highlight is that we've gone from 6.5 months between releases to 4.5 months, and hopefully we can cut that down a bit further, aiming for more smaller releases and more predictability across the board, because this is one of the first times where we set a target month at least, and it looks like we're on pace to hit that 5 months later. So yay. So with that, things are graduating to standard. These are probably the ones that are most interesting, and hopefully they're not controversial. Every single one of these GEPs that made it to standard meets all our graduation criteria. That means we have multiple implementations that are passing thorough conformance tests. So a minimum of 3 implementations and conformance tests for all of these. With that said, we've got HTTP route timeouts. This is actually 2 things. It's a duration format and a set of 2 timeouts. There's an overall request timeout and then a timeout for the request from the gateway to the backend. You can see how this is configured here. I hope this is non-controversial. And I also want to call out that we've had 4 different owners of this GEP during the, or people who have made significant contributions to this GEP. Timeouts are a surprisingly complicated thing to get right, but I'm pretty happy with where this one landed. Next one is gateway labels. This one has been a bit more controversial, but basically the idea is that whatever the underlying infrastructure is that is happening behind a gateway, it would be useful to specify some labels on that. So if this is cloud infrastructure, these labels could go to that cloud infrastructure if the infrastructure supported it. Or the more common case, if this is Kubernetes infrastructure, you can label all resources associated with the gateway with these specific labels. So whether that's pod, service, etc. Antonio?
Those are not mutable, right? You cannot change the labels once you apply.
You can.
Okay.
Is it expected that implementations will reconcile that down to infrastructure?
Yes. I don't. Yes.
Say
I
it
don't
with
know that we.
confidence, Rob.
Yeah, no, it definitely is, but I actually don't know if our conformance tests cover the update case. That's good feedback. So let me write a note.
I was more thinking in a deployment, right? You change the labels, you are going to roll out.
Right.
So it's I mean, has a lot of side effects replacing labels on a live scene.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, I will ask and get back to you. That's a good question. Any other comments or questions on this one? Cool. And backend protocol selection, Dave has owned this one. Oh, I should mention, trying to mention the people that have actually pushed these through. None of these GEPs have been pushed through by me, so want to give credit where credit's due. This one is Dave, and there's not much on this slide, but Dave has done some work inside K/K to define 2 app protocol definitions, one for HTTP2 and one for WebSocket support. And this is the parallel of that. That is basically Gateway API confirming that implementation support that and having conformance tests to back that up. All right, so that's everything that's new going to standard. It's a fairly small list. The new experimental things, tiny one, route rules have a name now. This is something that a lot of people thought already existed. It's a sensible thing, I think. The most useful bits would be if in status you have an issue with a specific rule in a route, you can point to it and just say, hey, rule foo is the one that has an issue. But the bigger one is policy. So if you want a policy to target a specific section of a route, you can do that by targeting a rule name. Because this is backwards compatible, it has to be optional, but when they are specified, they need to be unique within the route. Cool. And then next up, HB route retries. This is, if you're going to read any GEP, this is a fun one because Mike went into a absurd amount of detail in this GEP, and retries you would think would be so easy to configure, but the retry on logic is remarkably difficult to make portable. Because Nginx, HAProxy, Envoy all support a different subset, some slightly overlapping concepts. A lot use strings to basically represent different categories, disconnects, etc. This was challenging to get right, but ultimately Mike found that the thing that has the most portability is just a subset of status codes, and we're requiring that every implementation support 500, 502, 503, and 504, because those are the only 4 that are portable across this whole mess. So that's this one. And there's also, number of attempts and back off to timeout, basically, or not timeout, interval. And then last one, we're making a bunch of changes to backend MTLS configuration. This is basically allowing the client cert to be specified on gateway. So if you want complete MTLS from a gateway to a backend, you need a client cert on a gateway. Then for things like Spiffy, you need SANs on backend TLS policy, so subject alt names. And then finally, you need TLS. Well, you don't need, but we are adding TLS options. We have an options field in Gateway TLS, and we think it makes sense to also add that back in TLS. And this is coming from Marcin and Lior. Yes, so those are the main thing. Oh, sorry, there's one more. I forgot. This is a really tiny one. Percentage-based request mirroring. This one is basically saying that you can mirror a percentage of traffic. There's a int. This was fun because there's no floats in Kube, so our floats are not fun in Kube. So we have either an int based percent. That's what we expect most people will use. But because we want to provide more precision, we've made a mutually exclusively field available, which is a fraction. So you can say 5/1000th instead of 42 for those very precise use cases. But again, going out of our way to avoid a float here, which results in a little funkiness. Antonio?
Is HTTP request or TCP connections?
This is HTTP requests.
Okay.
Yeah, it's well. There have been so many variations of this. There were some suggestions that we could have like a milli%. Like you could just have a single int and have it be a smaller number, so you could have more granularity. But
that's my question, because with HTTP2, you have requests in a single TCP connection. With HTTP1, if you have pipelining, you may have different connections. So that's the problem, is how do you implement the test for this? You need to support 3 scenarios: HTTP1 with pipelining, and HTTP2.
that's a great point. This is still experimental, so we don't have great test coverage yet. But yeah, so let me make sure we get those covered.
I did something in the past. If you want to tag me, I can help you with the setup.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, so that is the state of Gateway API in 1.2. I do want to call out that Ingress to Gateway had another release. There are more providers. I don't have the complete list yet. And Gateway Cuddle, Gaurav has been doing some incredible work on Gateway Cuddle. There's a big release coming that should line up with Gateway 1.2. But you may have seen a request go out from Gaurav yesterday to formally get this in its own repo. we initially thought that it would be easier to contain inside Gateway API repo, but since have determined that it's just overall simpler to have its own independent release cycle. So yeah, that is, we're trying to align releases, but it is going to be a different repo. Any comments, concerns, questions? Cool. All right. Well, that was easy. Thank you everyone for the feedback. We'll post links to actually do the API review, but just wanted everyone to know what we're up to. And if you saw anything you want to dig into further, don't hesitate to ping or look at the API review PR. I think that may also be the end of our meeting.
Yep. Sorry, I was realizing that it was my turn to talk. Yeah, that's it for agenda. Anybody have other topics they want to discuss? KubeCon is coming. I hope to see some or most of you in Salt Lake City. We'll get a meal together or something, as we usually do. And then London in the spring. So we have not yet signed up for a maintainer track talk, if I recall. Has anybody done that?
No, yeah, they did. I think Shane handled those.
Okay, so yeah, Shane's not here today. Okay, cool. I look forward to seeing some fun talks. I've seen some of the agenda. It looks great.
Yeah.
Okay, if nobody else has any other topics, then we will go. Remember, if you have been assigned issues for triage, please go take a look at them. Again, triage is not fixing the bug. It's figuring out if the bug is real and we can remove the triage label. And maybe finding somebody who can fix it, but you're not signing up to fix it. You're just triaging. I just want to encourage participation by as many people as I can. If you have ideas or other things for new KEPs, it's a pretty good time to start talking about it. So the SIG Network channel and mailing list are open. Otherwise, I will stop the recording. Record, stop.